Hello and welcome to Connect. I'm your host, Randy Shabilo. Today we'll have Pamela Goulden-McLeod with Saskatoon's Emergency Management Organization, as well as Brendan Novakowski from J&E Welding. As always, we want to connect with you.
Tweet us at connect_YXZ. Follow us on Facebook to watch new and past interviews, or email connectyxz@gmail.com with any future guest or topic suggestions.
Saskatoon's EMO, Emergency Management Organization, has been a good part of our city for a number of years, and I wanted to invite Pamela Goulden-McLeod to come and give us some insight into what's actually happening. Not a lot of people know about it, but it is there, and I think we should take some satisfaction in knowing that you're here and doing your job. So Pam, thank you for taking time.
Well, thank you for having us. I'm really excited about being here.
I want to know a little bit about the organization, maybe firstly, and talk a bit about yourself, how you got involved with the role. Because there's been a number of incidents that have happened as of late that I think people should be aware of, that there is someone that's watching this.
Sure. So Saskatoon Emergency Management Organization is a part of the City of Saskatoon, and we work within the Saskatoon Fire Department. It's been around for many, many years. Actually, Saskatoon Emergency Management as a field started during the civil defense and during that, when there was the nuclear Cold War going on. And it really was focused on what would happen in a community and how would people respond. And it's really evolved since then. Those are back in the days of duck and cover under your desk, the little turtle guy showing those videos. And now we're really focused on working with the community, the whole community of Saskatoon. So moving from just what would emergency responders do in a larger level emergency event to what does the whole community have to do to be resilient to a larger scale event? And how do we all have to work together? Because in larger scale events, it's never going to be one organization or one group that solves that. It's going to be us all working together to figure out how to move forward.
How do people stay involved? I know there be people that do have an inherent wish or want and desire to communicate and help. How do you see that working in the community in Saskatoon?
So we work closely with the emergency response groups, with Saskatoon Police Service, with Saskatoon Fire Department. But really an essential part of the work is with our citizens. And so if you go to the City of Saskatoon website under emergency management, you'll find information about personal preparedness. And so how do you as a family or you as a business prepare for a larger scale emergency or disaster situation? So how do you prepare and have a shelter in place plan or an evacuation plan, an emergency go kit? What do you need if you have to evacuate? What do you do for your pet? We saw in Fort Mac, one of the big things that happened during the fire is people evacuated that city, and a lot of people couldn't bring their pets with them, so the pets were left behind. And they had to develop a whole emergency response plan for those pets that were left behind. So we're getting people to think about who depends on you and who do you depend on, and how do you share your plans, what do you need to know in those situations. The biggest way citizens can be prepared is they can sign up at the City of Saskatoon for Notify Now, which is our mass emergency notification system. And you can sign up 5 different addresses. So you can sign up your house, your parents' house, your kids' school, your workplace, and you can sign up how you want to receive that information. So you can receive it via text message, email, or phone call. And we really encourage everybody signing up for all those means of communications. We've used that fairly recently here in the City of Saskatoon on a whole citywide. For the first time since we've had it in 2014, the whole city was received a message around 2 escaped prisoners, and the Saskatoon Police Service activated that. But if we think back to 2017, there was a tanker rollover on College Drive.
Oh, right.
And we really wanted the people in that area to know that they needed to take some steps to ensure their own safety while we were mitigating that situation. And so we shared information about sheltering in place in that time. So really we want you signed up for that so we can reach you when we need to reach you and how you want to be reached.
Just thinking out loud and listening to you right now, when there is a power failure, and I'm going to use a tornado as an example, or something where the power has gone out, many say that, well, I have my phone, but the phone doesn't always last. So should there be a way of using like a transistor radio, but something with another power source that if you run out can be changed?
Yeah, like we encourage people, one of the things that people can do, and they're relatively cheap, is get a battery pack for charging your phone. We also encourage people during power outages or any kind of a telecommunication failure, rather than calling, to use text messages whenever possible, because that's it takes up less bandwidth, it doesn't hog the radio links that we need to. But of course, yes, transistor radios, those are always a good thing to have. And you can get those wind-up radios from many locations where you can charge it up by winding it up. And you have those in your emergency go kits, along with some water, some canned food, and a can opener. Not an electric can opener, just an old school fashion can opener. Your important documents and pet food, water, those kind of things for yourselves.
I would imagine that at your level, you're communicating with people in Winnipeg, for example, with the storm that they had. Some of our civic resources went there to help with power lines and so on. What can we learn from a place like Winnipeg, because we get cold weather and freezing rain here? Can that happen here, and what would happen in that case?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and that's been something that we've thought about a lot, because that storm that hit Winnipeg could have easily hit Saskatoon.
Sure.
And the issue with that storm was that the canopy was still on the trees, so when those trees and those leaves got ice on them, they impacted the power lines. So we had a conversation with Winnipeg just yesterday, actually, and they had over 700,000 people without power for 92 hours or more. And so how are you prepared as a citizen for something like that? Because our initial response, they were having trouble getting emergency response vehicles down streets because the trees were down on the streets. So they had to get their city crews to get the trees out of the way so they could get fire, police, and ambulance down some of the streets into the situation. So we do look at that and we learn from that. Winnipeg is working on an after-action report, and they'll be sharing that, and we'll be looking at what can we learn from them, and how can we improve our plans for a situation like that.
I would imagine that some of these are fairly localized. I mean, Winnipeg's a good example of maybe a larger regional catastrophe. When we have a tornado or flooding in some neighborhoods, are there plans in place to deal with that?
Yeah, we have different levels of plans all the time. You have the localized ones, you have the larger scale municipal ones, and then provincial and federal plans that you're looking at. In the localized ones, we're looking at what can we do to notify the citizens in that specific area, and so we have different ways of doing that. But we also want citizens to look around their home and their workplace and figure out, what are the hazards in my area? Am I in an area that's prone for that flooding? Am I in an area close to a railroad track? Do I have to be aware of that and make plans for that? Am I on the outskirts of the city and more prone to a plow wind situation? And so really looking around you and being what we call situationally aware of what's in your area.
Maybe help me with that. I'm just playing some of the video back in my mind right now about the news of the recent tanker crash and with the rail cars. Is there an area that you would think, if you lived, I lived behind railroad tracks for many years, is there an area that you would consider a corridor that would be safe? I guess it depends on wind and everything at the time.
There's so many determinants. It's more what's in your immediate vicinity and what do you want to be aware of. And it's not that these are not occurrences that happen. The risk of them happening are very low, but the impact of them happening when something happens is high. So it's more being aware. And there's things that are really common in Saskatchewan, being prepared for cold weather. Having those safety kits. I remember when I turned 16 and started driving on the highways, my dad made sure that I had an emergency kit in my car. Do you have an emergency kit in your car? Do our teenagers heading out, do they have those things? So it's looking at what are the most common things that could impact our lives. Power outages, heavy windstorms, plow winds, those kind of things are the ones that are big incidents in Saskatchewan.
What is the plan when there is let's say a major outage and someone may need to get to the hospital, or sometimes I think we had one of the trains blocked off the city for an hour or two. How do you coordinate, I guess, when communication is a big thing? Thank you for talking about texting, because I think that's important. Not to tie up any resources that you might have, and to listen more than you talk, maybe?
Yeah, and to just be aware and to pay attention to those means of communication. So Notify Now, we also have provincially Sask Alert. when there's a situation you mentioned, when there might be roadways or there's impacts, the emergency response agencies all coordinate and share information around that.
That happens now?
That happens right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have a process within the emergency management for alerting when there might be something that's impacting one of our emergency response agencies, and we naturally communicate about that as part of the plans.
With the organization like yourself, how do you introduce services back to a community? I guess power firstly, but if you can't get to the power lines, is there a domino effect that you follow? And I guess every situation must be unique.
Yeah, and that's it. Every situation is unique, but we have built and embedded processes around how our emergency operations center operates and how our incident command structure operates. So through those processes, we determine what are the objectives in this incident. And of course, every incident is different, like you mentioned, but we have those team of specialists who are determining what's the main objective here. What's our top priority? Let's deal with that. Then we're going to move to our second priority. And we're always reevaluating that and always determining, how best do we respond. But I can't say this is the way we do it every time, because every time is different.
I've paid attention a little bit when you watch the news and there's hurricanes or something happening on the coast, people loading up with water and so on. Is there a recommendation, anyone watching today could maybe say some basic things to keep on hand in a home? That don't really have a shelf life?
I think the best thing to do is actually go to the City of Saskatoon website under Emergency Management, and we have a video there about what you need in your emergency go kit, and so it outlines it all. And we also have different checklists and access to different information, because there's lots of different things. I don't think I can list them all here. So if you go there, and you can pull that off, and that can guide you through that process.
For that, right? I think there's a little bit of common sense, but I would imagine that being swept up in the emotion of an event like that. Where's my son, daughter? Where's Fido? Those types of things. And you touched on the pets. What about emergency services to hospitals and so on? Are there plans in place for a plane crash or maybe a train coming off the rails in the city?
We take what's called an all hazards approach. So you build the processes for any hazard that could occur, and you look at the ones that are the most likely to occur in your community, and you plan for those. But because you have that all hazards approach, things like everybody should have a plan for their shelter in place, for their emergency evacuation, where if we say, it's not safe to stay in your home, you need to evacuate right now, where are you going to go? Do you have friends and family you're going to go to who live in a different part of the city, or are you going to be turning to the city for some emergency evacuation support? And we will be providing that. But knowing what your plans are from an all hazards approach. So it's those basic things. And the city has a similar process where we have some basic structures in place for addressing emergency situations, and then we have some very specific plans for different incidents that are more likely to happen.
Pam, we're just excited to see everything that's in place already, and thank you for the good work that you do with that organization. Just knowing that that's out there in place. Notify now is where we need to go. And I think we should do that sooner rather than later.
Yep, and you should check it every year, because sometimes people change their cell phone number or their email address. So as part of emergency preparedness at the first week of May, check all of that and make sure it's updated.
Point taken.
Great.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.